Now
Good
that the
morning.
door's open, I got this cat constantly.
Oh, look,
on
a
me.
cat.
Why are you? Can you hear that purr? Is that happy?
It sounds like it's just trying to eat your mic.
Go away though.
You're
Cat.
like, Bo, we like you. Goodbye.
How's your week going, Brandon?
Honestly, pretty good. I know we were
Nice.
ambling a bit before this, but like I'm in a similar place as you. Like it has been so hard to focus on work, and that's mainly because like we got a property because we're moving to Vancouver, and we found one that we were like, oh, we want this really badly, so we started like doing
Right.
the game,
Go,
right?
go, go.
Like it's like
Yeah.
get the docs, make the landlord love you, like all the things. And anyway, the end of the story is short and sweet. We got the place. We're super pumped. But of course, the moment we did that too, we're now super pumped and like distracted in our minds being like, oh, let's think about like the IKEA order or the other furniture, like whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's just,
Yeah.
it's become a very unproductive week for me.
Yeah.
Productive in
Yeah.
life, unproductive in work, but you know,
Exactly.
whatever.
Yeah. Moving takes such an insane amount of cognitive energy and attention, even like weeks or months before you that do the move. And then for the first month after you're there, like you're going to be
Yep.
so distracted with like unpacking, setting up the space, checking out your neighborhood. Like you're in a whole new province.
Yeah, literally.
So
I've never
be
been
so much
to British
stuff for you to
Columbia other than the airport for a layover, like for an hour.
Right.
So like, it's like
gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should probably try and anticipate this and just like book time off work.
Oh yeah.
For at least a
Yeah.
week once
Yeah.
you get
well,
there.
I have to
right?
take. I took a week off work because we're driving there from Ontario, so it's 6 days. And each day is like
Yeah.
it's like 10 hours I think or something, 10 or 12 the first day, and then it's kind of like 7 to 8 hours each day.
Oh
Yeah,
my
driving like with my dog in the back, my partner with me.
Canada's
Canada's
big.
big, yeah. I'm excited because it's like we've been
That's incredible.
like legit lockdown for like a year in Toronto. Like there's been no
Mm-hmm.
almost no reprieve other than this brief period in the summer, which no one should have gone outside, but they said you could go outside. Like was kind of the thing. But anyway,
Sure.
so I'm. It doesn't matter if it's like 10 hours of driving a day. I'm actually just so excited to be moving, like going somewhere on some type of trip, sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's gonna be great. But yes, a week off to do the move. We get there on the 1st. Luckily, that's a long weekend. It's like the Good Friday, Easter Monday. And since my birthday is on the Monday, I'll be like hanging out for 4 days or whatever when we arrive. So that'd be great. And then hopefully we settle in quickly. Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
We're like bringing a
I'm sure
carload. Like
figure
we're
it
not
out.
bringing a U-Haul. So I mean, the move into the home will be like 7 boxes and be like, okay, we're done. So it's not like that. But I got to build furniture probably over that weekend.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Anyway, it's gonna be awesome. Work-wise,
So yeah, what's going on with
Codex,
work?
Codex, man, full tilt,
Yeah.
all in,
Yeah, I
all
know.
the time.
What about Codex?
You can go to usecodex.com
Oh,
and you can check
I'm gonna
out
do that right now.
a super quick Webflow template that we made into the Codex website.
I've never seen this website
My
yet.
God.
This is my first
Give me a live
on
first
the
impression.
air.
And
Too much
I was going to
text.
say I expect some pain.
Too many words. I'm excited. Okay, there's videos at the
Yes.
bottom here, though.
Okay, so put the videos
You
up
might
top.
want to put those. You might want to move
That
those
sounds
up
like my
and
first beat. Let me do this live. Let's open a new tab.
because you have this landing page for listeners is like a giant sort of classic like title / value proposition at the top, followed by a short explainer paragraph. Pretty standard, pretty straightforward. And of course, the call to action is to subscribe to like a launch list, right?
Yes, sir.
This is looking good. This is a nice, clean like design. Like Webflow, of course, did a good job. It's just like very simple, black, dark background, dark mode design. Yeah, and then it's got these nice cards, which are sort of like, I guess these are like features it has.
Yes.
In a
Yeah.
way.
It's interesting because
Yeah.
like I made the vast majority of this basically just not the videos before we had any working prototype visuals. So we were like, oh, we got to go text heavy because like we don't have a thing. And then we basically
exactly.
finished the
You just have
prototype
to.
and we're like, well, we'll just shove some videos in and ship it because we also finished the pitch deck, which
Yeah.
I've now circulated to like a couple investors to just get early feedback on it. I got slammed last night. That was really fun by a good friend who's raised like quite a bit of money down in San Francisco. So he like read the deck and was just beating me up, and it was great.
Oh wow,
Oh yeah, it
really?
was so funny. Like,
Can you give us some of
yeah,
the
I'll give you some
highlights?
snippets. So number one, he's like, bro, you're my friend. I love you, and I love Canadians. I love like the way that we kind of are. And I'm like, okay, like he's American, like kind of born and raised
Mm-hmm.
in the San Francisco area. And he's like, but I got to
Sure.
tell you, he's like, this whole humble Canadian thing has to go if you're going to do a fundraise. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, look at this deck. You guys like write some funny stuff. Like we're a little bit more, like in my thing, it's like background on the team. And for me, there's like a section that says like has records in World of Warcraft because I like to, one, I find that as an actual unique benefit now because people perceive gaming as not like you're a nerd in a basement anymore. And if you have records, you obviously played at a high level. But for me, it's like also gives a little bit of my character. He's like, that's cool. He's like, but you've also done, he just listed off all these accomplishments I've had. And I was like, yeah. He's like, why didn't you put that in there? I'm like, I don't know. It sounds braggy. He's like, bro, brag. You're raising money. That's
Exactly.
literally the
Yeah.
point.
You should brag
Yeah. So
more.
he's just like,
That's
he's like, no,
so
my humble
interesting.
Canadian nonsense. He was using other stronger words that I won't use, but
Man, that's really good
it was
feedback.
great.
I saw that. I saw your deck
Mhm.
too. I forgot to message you about it.
Thanks.
Sorry,
Whatever.
but I did like kind of skim
Go
through
by
it,
my bro.
and that element didn't
Yeah.
jump out at me at all. I didn't even
Yeah.
notice that,
Yeah.
which probably because I'm also a
Yeah,
Canadian
and you're my brother,
and
like you
like
just know
have a similar
stuff
mindset.
about me,
Yeah,
so I feel like you don't, I guess, read it the same way necessarily.
but I never would have thought of that at all. That's really good
Yeah.
feedback. Yeah,
So
brag
he
more.
hit me with that. He had other things too. He's like, just like be more straight, more direct. Like we spent a decent time, which I think is still the right layout. It's an eight for listeners. It's an 8-slide deck, very simple with a title slide at the front, so 9 technically. But like title slide, name of the company, Codex, and then it's like, what's the problem space? So we're just trying to identify the area in which we wish to do work. Then there's a solution space, and then it kind of moves into like, okay, well, here's team, here's our actual first like product thing that's going to go after this solution space. And he liked the flow and everything was fine with that, but he's like, his thing was like, actually tell me a little less and set yourself up more so that you're like 1-2 punching constantly. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, like when you get in the room and have conversations, that's where you get to do the whole like, I think in a nuanced way, I'm contrarian, like, and show that to a partner at a firm. He's like, but your deck just needs to be super punchy. It's like a setup with one sentence and then the punch with the second sentence. Like, there's this problem space in the world. And like, that's what he was saying too, is he's like, in theory, in my deck, right? I'm like, Codex could increase engineering onboarding time because they'll come in, they'll get a context rich repo, and theoretically, they'll be able to, onboard into this organization or this code base a lot faster. And he's like, cool. You know what you should say? I was like, what? He's like, say that the average engineer costs $150,000 US per month, and that with your solution, you're going to reduce onboarding time from 3 months down to 2 weeks, which means you're going to save on average $50,000 to the business for each new engineer they onboard instead of them being unproductive for that long. I was like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
okay. I'm like,
There you
but
go.
it's not true. And he's like, no, you just write that's what it will do, not like you did it, here's math. He's like, you're a seed
Yeah.
raise, like that's the goal, that's the point. And I was like, but that seems really audacious. He's like, yes, write it down. It's like, okay.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
he's like, that's the point. Like, anyway, I'm all trying to be like perfectly honest, like everything is like a true statement in
Sure.
the deck. There's no, other than like
Yeah.
vision being
Yeah.
a little bit more like, we'd like to get here, but like that's about it. And he's like, no, just go at it. I was like, all right. So
Interesting.
he also said he'd
Yeah,
write
I
me a
think
check.
there's.
Sorry, so it ended well.
Oh,
He's like,
okay.
I'll write you a check.
Wow,
And then he asked if
Hey.
anyone had written.
it's amazing. Why didn't you start with that?
Yeah, I know. He's like, has anyone written you a check? I was like, no, not yet. He's like, can I be the first? I was like, why? And he's like, I just want to be the
Yeah.
first and say I was the first. And I was like, okay.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah.
What? Okay, yeah. So what do you do when he says that?
I say
What
yes.
happens next?
You can.
Yeah, and then
And
what?
then we started discussing like actual like deal price. So like what would the terms be? And like when I'm talking about deal price, like it's nothing crazy. But he's like, well, how much do you want to raise? Because the deck obviously has an ask, and our intention is to raise like I'm going to call it a proper seed round. So like around $1 million would be the best because that gives us 18 months with more people joining with better diversity of talent, like design, all this stuff. But in this case, he's just like, what would you do? And like, how much do you need? And he's also really good at raising. So he wants to introduce me to some folks who will very likely follow him.
Okay.
but he's done very well for himself. So it's kind of one of those like, I know you well, and I'll cut you, like whatever, a check, and it's just because I want to be in on what you do. Like he likes the idea and everything, that's great, but he's like, I like you and I like your team a lot more than like anything else here. So in that case, it's just, yeah, I do, this much of a raise on this much of a valuation. I don't want to say it out loud right now, by the way, because we're recording, and that's part of fundraising. It's not necessarily giving away our exact plans, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm just curious because I've never raised money.
Oh,
I'm curious what what literally happens the moment you're in a meeting like that and he says, "Can I write you a check?" and you say,
right.
yes.
Yeah. So
like what concretely happens next so that you like have money in your bank account?
So the concrete steps in this case is one of two things happens. Either he says, "I want to write you a check," and you go, "Okay." And you have a term sheet or you have a plan for what your terms will be, which would be, I'm going to raise, I'm going to make up numbers now. This is not related to Codex. It's like,
hypothetical.
I want to raise $500,000 on a, 4 million cap safe. So first you have to determine what the instrument of the fundraise is, which is either an equity round, a convertible debt mature, or a safe, which is a simple agreement for future equity. You can look these up. The templates are provided for free from Y Combinator. They're the best. They just give them away now.
Okay.
And they just mean there are various ways to like get value out of a company, and a convertible note and a safe are generally used when you don't truly know the value of a company, because it protects both the investor and the entrepreneur a bit, because a cap just basically says you're buying this much of the company, and you get more if we wind up raising an equity round that's below the cap. They'll actually wind up getting more equity, but if we raise way above the cap, they still get the value up to the cap amount. So if he bought 10% of my business with his investment, so let's say he buys, I'm not going to do bad math, 500K, 5 million. So whatever, he puts 250K. He's trying to get at this round, around 10% equity. But if we go to market, we dominated, and our next round, we raise like at 15 million valuation equity round Series A, his money still hits at the 5. So that's why it protects the investor from a crazy upside and balancing it. So in this exact case, it's, do you have a term sheet? What are the terms? If you don't have a term sheet, then it's kind of saying you go kind of one of two ways. One, does he want to set the terms, which would mean he's a lead investor? And generally speaking, your lead investor will be writing at least half the round in one check. So if you're doing a 500K check, they're usually doing 250 or more. And that's what kind of gives them the quote unquote right to like determine the terms.
Just set some terms.
So because they're the lead.
Okay.
Or he says, well, I don't want to lead, but I want to be in, and I'll write you your first check. So I'm in for whatever. Let's say he says $50,000. And that's called soft circling. So that means I have a person who's committed, and they've committed to this amount of money on more or less whatever terms we raise. But it means that I still have to go find a lead. So I don't really get the money until I have the lead, and he sees the deal and goes, yeah, I'm still good with that or whatever. Yeah. So in this case, he would be a soft circle. Though his intention was to send me an email about what terms he would probably do the deal at. And so I'm
okay. So at this point, what you have is more like a strong commitment. You didn't like
there's not a check in my bag. No. And
and so it's sort of contingent on like you going around and getting some other investors and like fleshing out those terms of the investment. It would help you a lot to have a lead investor, and then you circle back to him and say, "Here's what we came up with. Like, are you still in?" And he at that point could walk away still and be like, "Nah, 100%, this is no good." Okay.
And like even if
but like I'm guessing that's unlikely. I don't know. How often does that happen?
So that's kind of thing.
For someone who's like, "Yeah, I want to give you your first check," like they really seem into it. So
it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's very reasonable that they walk away if you come back and the deal, like the term sheet you got was wild. Like, you know what I mean? Like somehow I go convince whatever person to give me like a 10 million valuation cap or something. He might be like, well, it's a little too expensive. And most of the time that's because the investor, either as an angel or an institutional, like a VC, they have a thesis. And generally the thesis says that they're supposed to try to target a certain amount of ownership in a business when they write their first check. and then they save a bunch of money in what's known as reserve capital, with the intention of doing follow-on investments, generally up to their pro rata amount that they're given,
Yeah.
at minimum.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's what you were saying before in another podcast about the power law, right? Like they save a bunch of capital because if you start winning, they keep investing because it's like it's going to keep winning. Because that's usually, obviously, things go
that
wrong.
would be, I guess, an ideal setup as an investor.
You basically secure your pro rata. You try to maintain
It's
that
like
ownership.
you're sort of like increasing your bets as you see more guaranteed success.
It's the same theory from the book Great by Choice, where it's like first you fire lead bullets, then fire cannonballs.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like you sprinkle your $100 grand around, and then one starts winning. You go, okay, here's $1 million. Like here's $1 million. Like I want to keep, So for him to say no, if I came back, it'd be like if he wanted to do 250K for 10% ish, and I came back and went, whoa, Andreesen Horowitz gave me a 10 million valuation. You still want to give me 250? Me, I'd say no, because like now he's only buying.
Because now that's only worth a tiny percentage,
like 2.5% or whatever.
Okay,
cool. Which is all reasonable.
Thanks for walking through that.
Anytime. Yeah. There's a bunch of other ways to do this too. You can do party rounds, which means I can set a term sheet as a founder, more or less, and then just walk around to investors and be like, you good with this? Yes, no. Which is nice because it's a yes, no, and I set the terms, but it's really hard to raise that way because most of the time leads are like, what? No. Like, you don't have a lead. Like,
of course,
not really backing you. You just said, how about this number? So.
Hey, you never know. You have like some crazy runaway product.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like, but other people have done that.
Rome Research or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
also called a party.
I don't know if that's how they did it. I'm just thinking of like a recent product that was like really hyped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a bunch of ways to do it. You can also do rolling closes. Generally speaking, a rolling close you don't do as your first round because like if you can't raise the amount of money that you need to achieve your operating plan, like you shouldn't raise the money most of the time. Like if you raise 90% of it, sure, you can close, and that's kind of where you do what's like first close, and then you can go get the rest of the money later. So so it's safe. You can actually set a number. Same with a convertible debt, where it says we're going to do this cap of valuation, and we're only going to raise up to this number on this instrument. So that kind of gives protection. So if my intention is to raise $1 million, and my friend, 6 friends and other VCs are like, hey, I like the deal, and I get like $600,000 in commitments, and one of them sets terms, I might close that money because $600,000 lets us go at the product, with just the founding team for like a good amount of whatever. And then as you're going, you can kind of go close the other money. The harder part about that is you have to convince your first investors that that's fair, because the problem is they put 600K in today. You work on it for 8 months and things go gangbusters, and then some other investor writes you another check for the same terms. That's like a discount for them because the other team de-risked it. Like they give you
acquired
early money,
more risk.
but they have the same terms, so it's like,
Wild, man.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having fun with this. I'll stop.
No, please. This is. I mean, I know basically nothing about raising money. I've never researched it. I've never listened to a podcast about it. I know absolutely nothing.
Listen to Invest with the Best.
I've just in this 10 minutes learned a lot, and I understood about 60% of it. So, this could be worth a deep dive some other time, maybe with another person. And I can get you guys to unravel all the jargon you just spun off at me.
I got a lot
that I understood like half of it. But yeah, I know today we don't have tons of time to talk, so I won't dig in further today, but
we'll
that's
dig
cool. I guess one last question. Do you have any opinion, like right now for you, for Codex, what's the best format out of all those ones you just talked me through? Cap, safe, rolling close, etc. Like, what's your favorite option?
I want to do a safe
for Codex
with a cap.
Okay.
And that would be our best option. And I need
And as you said, you're aiming for around 1 million, like ballpark.
Oh yeah,
Is that exactly what you need, or something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. My target raise is 1 million on a 5 million cap, because I'm willing to give up around 20% of my business in this round. That's like really standard in terms, like giving up 20% of your business is what you should kind of expect to do each time you raise capital. like every single time. But remember, it
Okay.
does come with like you literally generate more shares when you do a capital raise. So there's the dilution economics. So it's not like I'm flat handing 20%. It's that I'm like they're buying in 20%, and then we as the founding team dilute accordingly. So as you do the math over round over round over round, it's not like you're just constantly handing out like all 20%. You know what I mean? It's a weird math
I
formula.
don't totally know what you mean, but
You put more
again, like
water in the
maybe
bathtub,
some other.
so you
Yeah.
literally
Okay.
have more water. So
I
even
see.
though, yeah, it
Thank you.
just gets weird. But yeah. So my target raise is 1 million on a 5 million. It's just one of those things where if we
Okay.
fail to achieve that, I don't think we will. But I'm just saying, if we fail to achieve that, then it's like, okay, the short story is what's the minimum number for me to like do a raise? And it's kind of like,
Still want to
yeah,
do it.
it's kind of like, well, I need probably my founding team full time for at least a year is like the barest of bare bones. And then you have to do an analysis as a founder, like, is that worth it?
Is that worth it?
Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
like, you might not actually achieve what you need to achieve in order to see if the products
course.
could be or company could be successful. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's mine.
Yeah,
Safe.
that's super interesting.
Do the safe. Safes are great for first round because I can't value the business right on an equity round right now because I have no idea. So
Yeah. No.
yeah.
Cool, man. Well, good
Thanks.
luck. So, I mean, you got your first check.
Oh, I think
Or your
so.
first commitment.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
That's like amazing.
Yeah.
That's like beyond my imagining.
Me too.
Personally. So.
I mean, I literally called my friend because he's like writes code and everything. It was supposed to be a user interview, and I know he's done well and he's financially independent and stuff. But like, yeah, it's like, yep, I'll write you a check. It's like, all right. Anyway, unexpected outcomes,
Amazing.
happy accidents, or whatever.
Yeah, I'll
our
say.
man Bob Ross says. Yeah. How about you? No fundraising, bootstrap life.
Yeah, still a bootstrap
Yeah.
life. Though I gotta say, I've been thinking still a lot about how much working alone is not my ideal scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm cut out for it in like the long term.
No.
I'm still
Very
doing
few are,
fine,
man.
obviously. I'm still doing fine.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm constantly thinking about there's a lot of reasons I want to work with other people like on a project or on a company. But I'll just like I think the top one for me, honestly, right now is I feel like I just have a really clear kind of long-term vision for the kind of stuff I want to build and what needs to happen with Sword and Source. And it's really hard to see all that in my head and be like, yes.
Right. Yeah.
Like, these are all pretty good ideas. It's really hard to see that and just not be able to execute on it very quickly.
Yeah. No, that's hard.
It's super frustrating. So
Yeah.
it's like it's building tension in me. It's like I really have to work on the mindset still. I'm feeling like impatient a lot, which I don't think is healthy.
Yeah.
But what it fundamentally keeps bringing me back to is like I know I need to do this. I need to set time aside in my calendar to just think about this. I need to make this like a task on my board and just spend like maybe a day on it. But I need to do some serious deep thinking about like what should I do about this fact that I know I want a team. And investing, like raising money is like definitely an option.
Oh
right?
yeah, of course.
Like, clearly that's, I don't know if it would work for me personally or if it's really what I want because I haven't done the thinking. I haven't really reflected deeply, but it's obviously one path to getting a team sooner.
Oh yeah.
Is like raising money.
Yep.
Just like coming up with a bigger idea, doing the kind of pitch thing you're doing and like raising money, and then I can have a team.
Yeah,
Like faster.
for sure.
I don't know if it's ideal in terms of. Actually, I don't know. It's hard to say what's ideal. Maybe it is ideal. But my current initial like bias is like the ideal business evolution for me is like that thing where I kind of like just pull the weight myself until I have something.
Yeah.
That's like, okay, it's it's either product market fit or it's like close enough.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, there's something and it's limping along, but at least there's like revenue
Yeah.
that's regular and some sort of a model, and it's starting to limp along. And then at that point being like, okay, I feel like I can take a bigger bet on this. Like you said, like the fire the cannonball
Yeah,
thing.
no.
It's like, okay, this is limping along. It's not worth very much right now, but I feel more ready to take the risk that it will grow into something worthwhile. And sort of project to the future and then take the risk on like either then raising money or like hiring or like I don't know.
Yep.
Anyway,
I mean,
that's all I have to say about investing, I guess, is like I'm kind of a little bit worrying about this fact about myself that I just like really want to get it going with like more people.
Yeah, no, but I mean, there's a couple things that go in there. Like I work significantly better with at least one other person. That's one thing that I know.
Me too.
I
way
find
better.
I constantly come to the table with an 80% done idea that I think is like really good, and then even just having a conversation with somebody who may not even know anything about the domain space makes me make it better because they just ask
Like rapidly,
like insanely
right?
faster.
I know.
So
We saw this recently. You and I got together and we had a full day together working on this idea that I'm trying to move forward for Sword and Source. It's like a new product idea. And it was all just a bunch of half-formed kind of energy around a sort of theme or space, like pretty vague, right? And I'd been sort of chipping away at it slowly for like weeks, just like putting things in my notes. And then just one day with you, just talking about nothing else, and we came out with like a pretty solid like next step on like, okay, here's what we think the problem is, here's what we think the solution could be. And that's like just way faster.
So that's a big one for me. And I presume you, because we're very similar. And then
That's huge.
the two, though, you, in my opinion, you're doing the right thing. Like, you don't want to go fundraise kind of anywhere unless you have really good, really rich friends who just want to be a part of your story, right? Like as an angel, where they're not really going to like, you know what I mean? The last thing you want is someone on a board seat trying to get control that you're reporting to when you like didn't really want to raise money. You know what I mean? Because then you have a boss. Like you just literally have a boss now.
Of course.
So like, but basically you don't want to raise unless you're in a position of strength either. So like having a product that's limping along with revenue that seems to be going in the right direction is strength. Because like you're like, well, if you don't want to give me the money, that's fine. I'll just keep bootstrapping and growing this. Like I don't require the money.
Yeah, that's obviously the
Right.
best
Like
strategic position.
you know.
But that could be far from now.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So it's hard.
Yeah. And then of course, you know, people like us, like we have Codex. It looks good. We have great indications, but at the same time, right, we don't have a product in market that's netting revenue of any kind, which that's what makes it also kind of fun. And that's what my friend was saying last night. He's like, you're at an interesting point. Like, he's like, don't make revenue and raise now, or like start trying to make revenue and you're raising in like 8 months. And I hope your revenue works out like solo. Because like the moment you make $1, every other investor is just going to sit there and be like, I'm going to wait until you have better data.
I see what you mean. Yeah, it's like
wow,
there's
we're
that
ready to
sort
check
of purgatory, or not, sort of purgatory, where like once there's a single dollar, that's a bad time to raise.
Exactly.
It needs to then have traction and data. Yeah, that makes
Where
sense.
at the idea stage, at least, they're like, I like this thesis.
Yeah, exactly. Right now you can raise on the promise. Yeah.
Now, of course, your valuations are quite different as well.
Of
like
course,
if I can get to market, I can get revenue.
Different trade-offs.
Way easier to get what I want. Anyway, here we are.
Yep.
Yeah. So this was a fun blah class. I bet I got like 12 things wrong. I hope someone tweets me with more stuff. Read Venture Deals by Brad Feld. If anybody out there wants to learn this,
Okay, Venture Deals by Brad
that is the
Feld.
#1 book. It probably the only book you need to read. And
There you go.
I think he's posted all of it on his blog, and I think it's called Feld Thoughts.
Okay.
For like
There
free
you go.
too. So if you can't afford the book, have at it.
Perfect, man. That's awesome.
man.
Sorry, I got to cut it short today.
Good.
We still have tons to talk about, but it'll have to wait.
Hey, it's good. Things are worth waiting for. It was really good to see you.
Thanks for the investing intro class.
Yeah, exactly. Anytime. I'm not very good at it.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
See you, brother.